New questions about the safety of artificial turf following that injury to Aaron Rodgers that many expect will keep him sidelined for the season. ABC's Jacqueline Lee joins us live from SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, one of nearly a dozen NFL stadiums without artificial turf. Jacqueline, good morning.
Yes, Janae, good morning to you. With 30 NFL stadiums across the country, about half are made of artificial turf, the other half made of natural grass. And now arguments are being made on both sides for which should stay and which should go. This morning, the debate over artificial turf's place in the NFL is heating up following what appears to be Aaron Rodgers' season-ending Achilles injury. But now, some are blaming his injury on the use of artificial turf, fueling calls by some players and their union to switch fields to natural grass. NFL Players Association Executive Director Lloyd Howell saying in a statement, moving all stadium fields to high-quality natural grass surfaces is the easiest decision the NFL can make. The players overwhelmingly prefer it, and the data is clear that grass is simply safer than artificial turf. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell speaking out on the issue in an interview with ESPN.
We want to go on what's the best from an injury standpoint to prevent the injuries, to give our players the best possible surface to play on.
A letter sent in April by the Players Association President J.C. Tretter highlights data he says show injury rates on synthetic surfaces were higher than on natural surfaces for 6 consecutive years. But the NFL found a different conclusion from the same study, arguing the injury rate was virtually the same in 2021 for both turf and grass.
These are the type of things that the National Football League and the Players Association are going to have to figure out. They're going to have to talk it out. They're going to have meetings. And this is something that's not going to go away.
Many players now echoing the Players Association's call for a move to grass surfaces.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simple. The numbers say that grass is healthier for the players, and so I want to play on the best surface that will keep me healthy.
The position I play, I would prefer grass any day.
Eli Manning, who spent his career at MetLife, the same stadium as the Jets, taking a different stance.
I think the turf, it gives you a reliable field all the time.
And with stadiums across the country converting their turf fields to grass ahead of the 2026 Soccer World Cup, the NFL Players Association director is questioning why what he calls inferior artificial surfaces are acceptable for their own players. Janae.
Jacqueline, big questions. And joining us now to talk about it more is ABC News medical correspondent Dr. Darian Sutton, who is a board-certified emergency medicine physician. Dr. Sutton, great to have you, of course. This has been a big debate in the NFL, but when we're talking about the potential for injury on artificial turf versus grass, obviously when someone comes into the ER, you're not asking them how they got hurt necessarily, but what are, if any, differences that you see?
When we look at the anecdotal evidence historically, the relative differences between injuries that happen on turf versus grass are relatively equal. But as was just stated in that piece, when we see more recently from the years of 2018 to 2020, we see a higher rate of injury on turf. Now, why is that? It comes down to a discussion on physics. Turf more likely has a higher level of friction, which allows for a grippy surface that's more traction. But if you're having a sudden movement and your foot is planted, that force has to go somewhere. And that can be transferred to your joints, which can increase the risk of harm. Also, turf has a higher level of, less level of elasticity or buoyancy. So when you hit that surface, it's technically harder. Now, that might be many of the reasons why many football players are saying, and soccer players as well, that when they're at the end of the day, after a day of turf, they're more sore than they are on grass. And so I tend to side on the players who are playing the game because those are the people who are directly impacted.
Yeah, it's about that plasticity in your body absorbing more of that impact. Then there are the concerns about the crumb rubber, that cushiony rubber layer being toxic. Scientists have known for years that plastics and rubbers can release dangerous chemicals, but there's little studies related to health.
And more studies are needed. When we're specifically talking about these chemicals, we're talking about things like PFAs or polyfluoroalkyl substances. We call these forever chemicals because they can last persistently in the environment in our bodies, and they can be associated to cancer and harm to our liver and our kidneys. Now, when you look at the overall studies, the question is how much of this chemical is too much because, as you said, we find it in many things that we use every day, nonstick cookware, waterproofing systems. And so we'll have to do more studies on what is the relationship between harm to the players and the community and environment around these fields.
And when you say community, it's bigger than just players on the football field. We're talking about at schools, on community parks. Talking about Aaron Rodgers real quick, who tore his Achilles tendon on artificial turf. He had surgery, hasn't ruled out returning later in the season, but these recoveries can take notoriously long, right?
Incredibly long, Janae. When you're talking about the Achilles tendon, it's an area that has limited blood supply, and that's one of the reasons why it takes so long to heal. Most players after surgery are usually in some form of a cast about 6 to 8 weeks after their surgery, and then they're usually in some orthotic boot, and then that's followed with several months of rehabilitation and physical therapy. But Aaron Rodgers is a professional player, so obviously he has a tremendous amount of access, and obviously he is probably healthier than the average person, but still, he's still human. So I'm praying and hoping for the best outcomes for him.
And he is optimistic. Thank you so much, Dr. Sutton.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.